Greetings and welcome to I Am the Real Indian, American Aborigine Indians of Turtle Island. We created this video for those of you who are questioning whether or not you are an Aborigine American Indian. Maybe you don't have enough information, or you feel like YouTube videos is just not giving you the substance that you need to really make that determination. If that's you, then we've created this video for you. And it is our hopes and our desires and our prayers that you would remember and correct your status as an Aborigine American Indian. Today we're talking about the illegal construction of race among the Aborigine people of the Americas. And if you watch any of our other videos, you know that this is one of our greatest quotes. This is what the settlers, the colonists, decided. They said, make our conquest forget who they are, and we will be able to hold on to our spoils and their land without ever having to fire another bullet. And that is exactly what they did. I am Chiefess Osceola Riverhorse, and I am here to share with you how the Aborigine peoples of the Americas, the Olmecs, were made to look and became the legal Native Americans who were the cross between the Olmecs and the Europeans who came. And the assimilated Aborigine was renamed African American. The Olmecs, if you haven't heard of them, most of you, I'm sure you have. If you're here, you probably already have some knowledge about who the Olmecs were. They were the first empire builders of the advanced civilization of the Americas. They had pyramids, they had sphinx, and a complex society before it was destroyed by the Spaniards and others who came and destroyed our land. The Olmecs were considered to be the mother culture of the Aborigine people of the Americas, which included South, North America, and Canada. They were pre-Columbian people who inherited these parts of the world long before the Spaniards, the French, and later the British came, according to Hacks Schrag in 2011. They ruled and developed America into a sprawling cultural ground which could stand up to the Nile Valley, yes, Egypt, Indus, and the Yellow River valleys. No Europeans, fair-skinned or light-colored people were in the Americas prior to the arrival of the settlers from Europe. Imagine the amazement, outrage, and the shock of the academic community to find a cultured people with no noticeable European blood predating Mayan culture. Thanks to Hack and Schrag, we now know without racist interpretations, the Olmecs were the original Aboriginal people who created a unique culture throughout the Americas. And according to Hack and Schrag, there is no credible evidence for major intrusion from outside the America. Hence, the melanated people did not come from Africa, but were Aborigines from the Americas. Let's look at some of the descriptions of the Aborigine people before the mixing of the Aborigines and the settlers. They were described as black, black, swart, blacker than other tribes, brown, brown, yellow, brown, red, browner colors, brunette, chestnut color, cinnamon color, copper cast, copper color skin, copper complexion, coppery complexion, dark, dark bronze, dark brown hue, dark color, dark complexions, dark skin, darker than copper, deep brunette, deep chestnut color, dingy brown, dingy copper color, dirty dark red, dull brown, hazel complexion, light copper color, swart, swarthy 2020 red. And these are from books written in 1995, 1671, 1904, 1671, 1812, 1842, 1835, 1936, and so on, before they began to rewrite the story of our people. And when we look at from the first images of the Aboriginals, they were hand drawn before the invention of cameras. And what you can see is they represent all these colors. And some of these other colors are colors that they colored their bodies with. Okay? These first images also show and point to how the Aborigine people were described long before Columbus came. And in a book by D. Wolfe Burnell in 1865 entitled The Indian Races of North and South America, the term Indian was not used. And it did not become used until the federal Indian laws were created. So let's take a look at what he said on page 15. He said, the want of a written language among the what? Aborigines of America. The blindness of the system of hieroglyphs used by the more advanced nations of the continent and the wild discrepancies of their fanciful traditions. On page 17, he goes on to say some theorists have indefatigably followed up the idea that we are to search for the lost tribes of Israel among the red men of America and have found our fanciful resemblances, otherwise unaccountable, between Indian and Hebrew words, ceremonies, and superstitions. Others have exhibited equal ingenuity in carrying out a comparison between the Moors of Africa and the Americas, claiming to establish a near affinity in character and complexion between the two races. On page 19, he goes on to describe the most distinguishing particularities of the race are the reddish or copper color of the skin, the prominence of the cheekbone, and the color and quality of the hair. Not absolutely straight, but somewhat wavy, coarseness, and glossy hue, and the manner in which it hangs. Their eyes are universally dark. On page 20, he says some have adopted this idea, consider that it involves the doctrine of a separate creation, while others that they might not discard the ordinarily received opinion that all mankind have sprung from a single pair, place the seat of paradise somewhere upon the western continent and consider the eastern nations as descendants of immigrants from America. Not Africa, but from America. The distinctive characteristics of the Aboriginal race of America, written by Samuel George Morton, who was a medical doctor, in a book called Arthea of Crania America, Crania Egyptica, written in 1844 on page 41, he describes the physical characteristics. It is an adage among travelers that he who has seen one tribe of Indians has seen all. So much do the individuals of this race resemble each other, notwithstanding with immense geographical distribution, and those differences of climate which embrace the extremes of heat and cold. The half-clad Fuegian, stricken from his dreary winter, has the same characteristics, lineaments, though in an exaggerated degree, as the Indians of the tropical plains, and those again resemble the tribes which inhabit the region west of the Rocky Mountains, those of the great valley of the Mississippi, and those again which skirt the Eskimos on the north. All possess alike the long, lank black hair, the brown or cinnamon colored skin, the heavy brow, the dull and sleepy eye, the full and compressed lips, and the salient but dilated nose. Those traits, moreover, are equally common to the savage and civilized nations. So if you have any doubt whatsoever about being the Aborigines of the Americas, all you've got to do, folks, is do your research. In a book, 1988, called The American Indian, on page 54, we have similar indication of indifference to characterize the ancient works to which we have alluded, all which rove that our modern Indians are really the Aboriginal race, and they never have been more civilized than they were when we first became acquainted with them. What a pompous thing to say when you weren't even there. How do you know what they had before you arrived? But at any rate, we thank you for putting in your book the fact that we are the Aborigine race. How did we start off being so dark and end up looking so light? This is the most common question that I get. And I say to you today, it was a deliberate act of colonizers to create another ethnic group through race mixing between the settlers and our Aboriginal mothers and fathers. Race mixing was encouraged because the first boatloads of Europeans did not have any women on them. And therefore, the first enslaved Aborigines were women and children who were taken as captives during the wars between settlers and Aboriginals. It wasn't until much later that European women were allowed to sail to the Americas. And this was after there were many wars between us, after they had conquered many of us and turned many of us into captives of war. After the signing of the treaties by the Aborigines, land theft, land allotment, and then stealing what was allotted to us, our people were chased, burned, chased into the forest, later into urban reservations, which they entitled public Indian housing. Not Indian housing, but public Indian housing. They had to take that off in case you came to recognize who you were by them saying that. Where we were forced to assimilate. We lost our identities, were stolen and given to the children of the mixed mestizos, metis, biracial mulattoes who were created between our Aboriginal mothers and the settler fathers. We are the real Indians. This presentation is presented to you by Tuskegee Creek Territory Nation. Thank you for watching. We appreciate you wanting to further your knowledge. And if you want to learn more, we encourage you to visit our site at www.americanaborigineindian.com. That's all we've got for you for today. Alone. Halito Wadu.